My name is Ronak Vyas, and this video is a collaboration with Programming Knowledge. In this video, we'll talk about how we can create a Spring Boot application and also implement a REST controller. So, in this video, we have a to-do list API, which basically can perform CRUD operations, create, update, delete, using Spring Boot, which we'll be using to develop our REST API. And in this video, we'll talk about how we can implement a simple REST controller. So a controller is basically a Java class where you can handle URLs and API endpoints, which then passes on the logic to the service or to the model, which is the database. So controller is your starting point to your URL and how we can actually work with a URL or an API endpoint. So let's get started. We'll be making a very simple get request using a controller, and a get request is basically when a client asks something or gets some data from the server. So if I want to get a task or get all of my tasks from a to-do list, I do a get request, and then that fetches me a JSON or any other thing, which then acts as uh, the data which we get from the REST API or the server. So let's get started. First, we need to create a class. So go inside Java, src main Java, and here go to new class, and this is going to be inside something called as hello. So we'll be making a get request called as hello, and we get back let's say namaste from the server. So let's see how we can implement that. We'll call this hello controller. So a very common naming convention in Spring Boot, being very opinionated, is that you need to. It's good practice to have the controller name inside your class whenever you're implementing a controller. So, which tells the user that this is a hello controller. Great. So we don't need a main method here. We just need hello controller, and all we can do is press finish. And here we have it. We have our controller now. Again, this is not a Spring Boot REST controller yet. It is simple. It is just a Java file or a Java class. So we have to annotate this to let Spring Boot know that this is a REST controller. So for that, we do an @REST controller, and we hover on top of it, and we import it now. So now basically now our controller is a REST controller because we annotated the class with it. So this is how, when Spring Boot on starting up, it does a class path scan. It basically scans all your classes and sees all the annotation on top of it and then acts accordingly. So this is how you tell Spring Boot that, okay, this is a controller and everything inside will be having API endpoints. Great. So now let's start developing our first controller or implementing our first controller method. So we'll be doing a request, a get request. So for that, we need to have a way to map that request to a function or a method inside our controller. So again, Spring Boot provides you with something called as request mapping. So you use request mapping to actually map your URL endpoint to the method. So let's do request mapping, and we go to /hello. So we will have to implement or get this. So let's give it some time. And we have a public string say hello. Great. And let's import request mapping. Awesome. And we return namaste. A very simple controller which greets you when you ask or request something or ask for a hello, right? Nothing complicated, nothing complex, just a simple controller. So here, what happens behind the scenes is that whenever you access localhost port 8080 or base URL /hello, that /hello is mapped with this function, the say hello function, and it returns back namaste. So in this video, we'll talk only about how we can return a string, but in the upcoming videos, we'll actually return objects and much more complicated data structures than just a string. So here we use the request mapping annotation to have a /hello mapped to the function, and as you can see, Spring Boot makes it really, really easy. And if I have to actually go all the way and say it makes it as easy as Python to actually develop REST controllers. So it's as simple as this. You have a REST controller annotation and a request mapping annotation. You have your function, you have a return value, and you're done. So you have a GET request working completely, fully, without any other thing to do. And all we have left to do now is to run this, and we can see that when you do a slash hello, it returns back namaste. So let's try that. We do go here and we run it. So give it time. It's really nice ASCII art here. So I really like that. Okay, so application failed to start. Why is that? Verify entity stop the process. Okay. I already might have something running. So yeah, so let's stop everything. My bad. And okay, now that we have stopped everything, we start it again. We really shouldn't have got lost on that. Okay, so now I can see that Tomcat has been started on port 8080. So we had our previous previous server running. So now when you go to localhost port 8080, not 808, 8080. Yeah, so again we get this page, but when you go to a slash hello, we get a namaste back. So this is how you implement a REST controller using Spring Boot, and this is a very, very, very simple tutorial, a very straightforward tutorial. And from the next video onwards, we'll actually start building our to-do list API. We'll actually get into the architecture and how Spring Boot works, how we can actually adhere to the Java way of actually building REST applications with the service, the model, JPA, all of that fancy stuff. So yeah, this is what I have for this tutorial. We have successfully implemented a REST controller which does nothing but just says you a simple cute hello and a namaste. So that was it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.